Welcome to Hands-on M365, the program where we take a high-velocity snapshot of the Microsoft 365 world. Our mission today is simple. Cut through all the noise and really deliver the most important updates you need to know about SharePoint and related tech from September 2025.
And it was quite a dense month, wasn't it? We pulled together the vital info, synthesizing it directly from the Microsoft 365 roadmap and the Message Center updates. And a big thanks to João Ferreira over at the Hands on SharePoint blog for that detailed analysis. It really makes it clear. September was definitely dominated by AI, lots of copilot news. But I think the real story for you, especially if you're an administrator, is how Microsoft paired that AI push with some crucial governance tools.
Right.
And critically, some mandatory admin actions that, well, you need to pay attention to pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. It sounds like there's a theme here. September felt like the month of maybe automated governance, like we're moving away from just reactive cleanup toward more proactive, maybe AI-guided policy.
That's a great way to put it. And the biggest headline feature, even though it's still in preview, I think has to be the knowledge agent in SharePoint.
The knowledge agent. Okay, what's the real significance there? I mean, beyond just being another smart bot.
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is how it could fundamentally change the whole content lifecycle. It's not just about summarizing docs. Microsoft is pitching it as this combination of intelligent content curation, automated site maintenance, and even the ability to create workflows using natural language.
Automated site maintenance, how does that work?
So this agent is designed to kind of manage the health of the knowledge base itself. Identifying stale content, maybe suggesting better organization, and actually maintaining the site. It really shifts the administrator's role potentially from being a maintenance worker to more of a strategic policy guide,
That is a huge structural change to think about. Okay, so that's the big picture, the preview. Now let's talk about the AI that's, more immediately practical rolling out now, especially for the folks managing the environment.
Right. Microsoft is definitely embedding Copilot more directly into that administrative workspace.
Yeah.
We saw 2 new Copilot skills pop up for the SharePoint Admin Center.
Yeah.
They should be rolling out globally around October 6th and 7th, 2025.
Okay, 2 new skills. And just to confirm, you'll need a Copilot license to actually use these AI helpers, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
That Copilot license is required. So the first one is step-by-step task guidance. Think about it. Previously, if an admin wanted to do something specific, like find all sites potentially over-permissioned and open to external users, well, they had to know the right PowerShell CMD lids or navigate some pretty complex menus.
Right, which isn't always straightforward.
Exactly. Now, Copilot is supposed to provide that sequential, clear guidance right there in the interface. And the second skill, which I think is crucial for governance, is multivariable site search. This lets you quickly filter and pinpoint sites based on multiple things at once: compliance status, usage metrics, security settings. It could save hours of manual hunting.
Okay, that kind of admin support sounds genuinely useful. But, the AI's output is only ever as good as the content it's working with. Is Microsoft doing anything to make the content itself sort of more intelligent for the AI?
They are, and that's a really key point. When these agents are grounded in SharePoint library content, Microsoft's enhancing their ability to use and, importantly, reason over the available metadata.
Metadata, okay, so like tags and properties.
Precisely. The AI can now better distinguish between similar documents. The classic example is, Q3 2025 draft proposal versus Q3 2025 final proposal. If you've got a good metadata applied, the AI can understand those distinctions. And that leads directly to higher quality, more trustworthy answers, which is exactly what we need if these agents are going to be, helping make decisions or automate things.
Right, trust is key. And speaking of building knowledge bases, for those using Microsoft Copilot Studio to create custom agents, I saw there was a pretty big scaling update.
Yes, a very welcome change, I think, for developers and power users. The limit for file uploads from SharePoint and OneDrive into Copilot Studio is increasing quite dramatically. It now supports up to 1,000 files per agent. That's hitting general availability around October 6th as well. So if you were struggling before because the file limits were too small to build a really comprehensive knowledge agent, well, that roadblock is basically gone.
1,000 files, okay. That definitely opens up possibilities for more robust custom agents. We also saw a few other updates more on the user experience side, didn't we? Like AI workflows in Teams and SharePoint libraries.
Yeah, for creating those quick custom automation templates. And also for mobile users, Viva Connections Mobile is introducing that News AI audio briefing feature.
Oh yeah, the audio summary of corporate news.
Exactly. It summarizes the top news stories. It's a nice accessibility feature, too, rolling out between mid-September and November.
Okay, lots of new AI capabilities. But let's connect this back to, well, the balance sheet. All this Copilot power costs money. I saw something about capacity pack support in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. How does that work?
Right, this is a significant administrative change for managing costs. They've introduced support for these capacity packs.
Capacity packs. Wait, isn't prepaying for messages just adding new budget overhead for admins? Especially if they can't accurately predict usage? Why is this seen as a positive?
That's a fair point. The benefit isn't necessarily about saving money outright, but more about mitigating risk and increasing predictability. Each pack gives you 25,000 prepaid Copilot messages per month. The relief for admins comes because consumption from those prepaid packs gets used first before the pay-as-you-go rates kick in.
Ah, okay. So it prioritizes the prepaid amount.
Exactly. So for organizations that have maybe large, fairly predictable usage patterns, it helps shield them from getting hit with unexpected, maybe massive overage charges. Think of it as an operational budgeting tool. It just helps reduce those financial surprises.
Understood. Okay, it's about predictability, which, yeah, IT budgets definitely crave. Let's pivot now from managing the AI environment to managing the fundamental structures of the organization itself. There was big news here.
Yes, we hit a pretty monumental structural milestone in September. SharePoint Online Tenant Rename finally reached general availability.
Yeah.
For any organization that's gone through or is going through a merger, acquisition, maybe just an internal rebranding, this is huge.
Absolutely. That's been a pain point for years.
It really has.
Yeah.
This takes what was previously a kind of custom high-risk process where changing your domain name felt like a cleanup chore that lasted forever and finally certifies it as a reliable, supported process.
Okay, GA is great news, but what are the limits? Does it work for everyone?
Good question. It's certified for tenants with up to 500,000 sites. But importantly, it still has some key exclusions. It won't handle vanity domains, for instance. Multi-geo environments are also excluded, and any tenant that exceeds that 500,000 site threshold. But for the vast majority of medium to large organizations, this removes a major barrier to structural change.
500,000 sites still covers a lot of ground. And kind of aligned with that structural health idea, Microsoft is giving admins new visibility with the SharePoint Content Management Assessment Dashboard, or CMA.
Yeah, the CMA dashboard. This is rolling out through October, and it's critical because it ties directly back to the trustworthiness of all these new AI features we've been talking about. Its whole purpose is to help admins evaluate site health, things like permission sprawl, lifecycle readiness.
It's like an automated governance audit.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
It helps flag content that might be too old or maybe too openly shared or just too messy for Copilot to reliably use. The goal is cleaner, more trustworthy AI output by ensuring the underlying content is in good shape.
Makes sense. Now, this requires specific licensing, doesn't it?
It does. You need either a SharePoint Advanced Management license or, interestingly, a Microsoft 365 Copilot license to get access to the full features of the CMA dashboard.
Okay. And sticking with that theme of granular control, there were also improvements to site lifecycle management, SLM policies?
Absolutely. A nice refinement here. SLM policies now support custom site inclusion via CSV upload. This might sound a bit niche, but it's really necessary for precise policy enforcement in some cases.
How so?
Well, imagine your standard rules for site expiration are mostly fine, but they might miss a handful of unique project sites that need a very specific policy. Now you can upload a list of up to 10,000 specific site URLs in a CSV file, and you can enforce rules precisely on just those sites, overriding the broader filters. It gives you that fine-grained control.
Okay. Useful for those edge cases. We also saw a couple of infrastructure changes that maybe signal how Microsoft is thinking about storage going forward. First, the PAYGO consumption-based meter for extra SharePoint storage.
Yeah, this is a subtle but I think important shift. It signals Microsoft wants to treat SharePoint storage less like a rigid pre-purchase bucket and more like an elastic cloud service, which makes sense. It integrates seamlessly with Microsoft 365 Archive, and it lets you scale storage up or down based on actual usage. It removes that operational headache of having to constantly predict and pre-buy fixed storage packs. Much more flexible.
More cloud-like, less like buying fixed drives. Got it. And one final infrastructure note that definitely requires admin attention. The whiteboard migration deadline.
Yes, absolutely. The clock is ticking on this one. Microsoft confirmed that the Azure Storage backend for whiteboard content is set for full deprecation by February 2026 as a hard deadline. Any whiteboard content still stored in Azure must be migrated over to OneDrive storage by then. Admins really need to be actively monitoring that migration progress right now if they haven't completed it already.
February 2026. Okay, noted. Let's shift gears now, maybe completely, to the immediate non-negotiable stuff, the critical action item from September's updates. What do administrators absolutely need to be doing, like, this week?
Okay, this is probably the most urgent operational change we saw this month. Microsoft confirmed that Chromium-based browsers, so that's Chrome, Edge, and others, specifically starting with the version 141, which was rolling out around the end of September, they will implement stricter restrictions on how web pages can access local network resources.
Local network access. How does that impact SharePoint and OneDrive users?
It directly impacts how users access OneDrive, SharePoint, and Microsoft lists through the web interface, especially when interacting with features that rely on local connections or offline access.
Okay, so if a browser suddenly gets more restrictive, what's the actual consequence for the user if the admin doesn't do anything?
Well, the user experience is going to suffer quite dramatically. Without configuring the new Local Network Access Allowed for URLs policy to pre-authorize your trusted Microsoft 365 domains, users will likely face slower web performance, which is bad enough. But more critically, they could lose access to important offline capabilities for SharePoint and OneDrive web content. Things might just stop working as expected.
Lose offline capabilities. Wow, okay. That's serious.
It is. This is a security-driven change by the browser vendors themselves, so Microsoft has to react. The bottom line is admins need to configure that policy now, add your M365 URLs to maintain continuity and avoid disruption for your users.
Right. Configure the policy now or face disruption. Understood, loud and clear. Now, let's maybe bring some good news, particularly for the developers listening in. There was some positive confirmation regarding a legacy feature, wasn't there?
Yes, definitely some relief for developers regarding SharePoint Framework, SPFx Field Customizers for lists and document libraries. After a lot of community feedback, Microsoft listened and has confirmed they are no longer planning to retire these customizers.
Okay, that's a definite side relief for many.
Absolutely. While Microsoft still generally recommends column formatting as the preferred path for new, maybe simpler implementations, field customizers are staying put. This preserves critical flexibility for more complex, custom solutions that rely on them. A good outcome.
Good news indeed. But it wasn't all good news on the retirement front. There are still some things going away, specifically around legacy Power BI features in SharePoint.
That's right. A couple of specific features. The visualize the list and visualize the library options directly within SharePoint Online are being retired. The retirement window is between mid-November and mid-December 2025. Users won't be able to access existing reports created using those specific buttons after that.
So what should users do instead?
They should transition to using Power BI Desktop to connect to SharePoint lists and libraries, or use the Export to Power BI feature. Those methods remain fully supported. It's more of a transition that requires some user communication rather than a major admin rebuild, thankfully.
Okay, good clarification. Let's wrap up with a couple of quick hits on more focused updates, connectivity, and embedded solutions. First, Viva Amplify seems to be broadening its horizons.
Yes, Viva Amplify has expanded its reach quite significantly. You can now distribute SharePoint news posts across multiple channels, Outlook, Teams, Viva Engage, and other SharePoint sites, all from that single, unified Amplify interface. It really streamlines cross-channel corporate communications, making it much easier to get consistent messaging out across the whole organization.
Nice integration. And finally, for those using custom solutions built on SharePoint Embedded, there were 3 core admin updates focused on control.
That's right. The focus here was clearly on giving administrators better visibility and control over those embedded containers, which has been a bit of a gap. First, they introduced a new filtering capability using sensitivity labels. This helps admins categorize and manage those containers much more efficiently based on the data's sensitivity.
Okay, filtering by sensitivity label, that's useful. What else?
Second, we got some much-needed PowerShell CMDlets, specifically for membership management within those containers, more granular control through scripting. And third, admins can now update the principal owner of user-owned containers, either through the SharePoint Admin Center or using PowerShell. That's actually vital for proper lifecycle management, especially when the original user who created the container leaves the organization.
Right, dealing with orphaned containers. Okay, good practical updates there. So to summarize our hands on M365 for September 2025. It feels like the month was really defined by this aggressive rollout of proactive AI capabilities, maybe best exemplified by the knowledge agent, but paired very deliberately, with essential high-impact governance tools like Tenant Rename finally hitting GA.
Exactly. And don't forget, the immediate focus must be on those action items. Deploy that local network access allowed for roles policy right away to ensure your users don't face performance issues or lose offline capabilities as Chromium version 141 rolls out more widely. That's the top priority.
Absolutely. And maybe if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the provocative thought for you listening is, consider how these new proactive AI tools, like the knowledge agent we discussed, or that CMA dashboard, how are they changing the fundamental relationship between you as an administrator and the health of your content? Your job seems to be strategically shifting, doesn't it? Maybe less about reacting to content sprawl after the fact, and more about training and governing the bots that enforce the policies up front. It feels like a shift towards strategy over simple maintenance.
That really is the essential takeaway from this month's updates, I think. It's a significant evolution. Well, thank you for joining us for this hands-on M365. We really hope this exploration into the Microsoft roadmap helps you stay informed and proactive.
Yes, we covered a lot of crucial ground today. We definitely encourage you to visit handsontech.net. You'll find daily updates there about Microsoft 365, plus lots of tips and tricks to really get the best out of SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and all the other M365 applications.
And of course, to make sure you don't miss future episodes like this one, please make sure you follow João Ferreira's blog and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. Goodbye for now.